Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations SH Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Piccolo figure. And when I got this figure, I think I posted a picture on Instagram and put something in the text of it to the effect of, if middle school me could see this action figure, he would freak out. This is my favorite Dragon Ball Z character of all time. And I remember back in the day I had the Irwin figure of Piccolo, probably about the same scale, but it was a re-release of just the Bandai's in Japan, but under a brand for the US. But he basically had articulated shoulders, and that was it. You could remove the cape and the turban. And he was cool, but you couldn't really do much with him. So now, so many years later, I finally have a super articulated Piccolo. And just like Goku, Piccolo comes with a ton of different hands. We get a pair of fists, which are just green with the black fingernails, but decently detailed. A pair of open blasting hands. Very, very cool. Pair of gripping style hands, kind of clawed hands. Once again, very cool look to them. Nice vein action going on the back. And then we get the two-fingered hand. And while with Goku, I said this was the instant transmission hand. Of course, with Piccolo, this is the, I won't even attempt to say the Japanese name, but the special beam cannon in the American dub. The spiral blast effect. Very cool, awesome attack. Once again with the vein on the back there. Very cool looking hand. Taking a look at Piccolo himself, you can see right now I have him with his arms folded with his cape and turban on. These arms are actually a separate piece. You can actually unpeg them, and mine weren't pegged in very well right then and there. But they are a separate piece of just folded arms, and these peg into the arm sockets, and you can strike that pose that you really couldn't with the regular articulation. So that is very cool, very nicely detailed. It's just kind of hard to line them up where they need to go, but they work pretty well. So of course, now that we have the pegs open, we can plug the normal arms in. And while we are reattaching these arms, we're gonna actually switch out the cape a little bit. You can see here on the front, you can see the gaps on either side. There's a little piece sticking on the front. Now this is specifically to use with his folded arms, but you can unpeg that and then attach a different front, a more full front. You can slide it back onto the figure, pop the head back on, and now we have Piccolo with the normal arms, the articulated arms, with the full front on his cape, which is really nice looking. I really like the effect we get with this. And of course, now I could take this and move his arms kind of back like this, and I basically have the Piccolo figure I had as a kid, where his arms are just stuck in this kind of weird back position. Cape is very nicely detailed, very well sculpted, nice wrinkles in it. There's a bluish green shading throughout to kind of give it some highlights. And once again, like the Goku, this is kind of more comic based, so having those kind of colors from the figure brought into the cape as shading, I think is very fitting. It has a nice billowy effect to it. Now the one issue I have that you probably just saw there is that it doesn't sit down on his shoulders very well, and it's kind of hard to keep the head attached with this cape on. I'm always kind of struggling to be able to actually get the head to sit fully on the peg and not just want to pop off all the time, or even just to get it situated on there to begin with. It's a little difficult and takes some playing around to get it to work just right. But if you mess with it enough, eventually you can get it. But let's pop that head back off and take the cape off and look at the figure without it. Start by looking at Piccolo's head. This is the one with the turban on it, so it's pretty basic, not a lot of paint shading, but a very solid sculpt to him. Kind of neutral pose. He's got his big ears sticking out the side, and just a plain white turban with kind of the purple spot on the top. Very cartoon, comic accurate, so I couldn't really ask for much more with this. But we can also pop that head off, and we also get what I would imagine to be the basic same look we just had, just without the turban. He now has his bald head and his antennas sticking out. The antennas are a little lopsided, but nothing horrible. But another nice head sculpt there. And then we also get this seriously pissed off head. He's baring his teeth, he's kind of looking off to the side. We have veins popping out of his forehead. Very, very angry face, and I really like this one. I'm not always a fan of the heads where they're looking off to the side. I think it makes it a little harder to pose the figure. But in this case, seeing that we have 3 different heads and 2 of them are looking straight ahead, I don't really mind that this one's a little different. Coming down, the costume is kind of more how it appears later in the series, where he has the deeper V-cut neck. Up in the original part of the series and in Dragon Ball, it came up much higher, but here we can see more of his chest. And I don't know if it's going to come off like this once I get the video uploaded, but looking through my camera, his costume's looking very blue, but it is definitely definitely a purple. He's got his red belt around the middle here. Got his arms with all the little spots, the Namekian kind of weird skin texture, and some nice sculpting in there, all these different patterns, almost like rings on a tree. He's got the red bands around his wrist as well. Got his baggy pants coming down here. And his Namekian shoes down here, very cool looking. You can even see a little bit of his ankle coming up between the shoe and the rest of his pants, which is a very nice touch. For articulation, like any SH Figuarts figure, this guy's loaded. His head is on a ball and hinge joint, so it can go very far up and down. It goes side to side, very easily tilts. He also has this lower neck joint, so they can go really, really far forward and back, a little side to side with that as well. Very cool. He has double ball jointed shoulders, so you actually get the armpit swivel. You can move it up and down at the armpit. You can also swivel forward and back out to the side, just like most action figures. This piece of his shoulder pad, the shoulder of his clothing, is also on a ball joint connected to the back of the shoulder, so you can rotate it and fill in the gap as you go. You have a swivel at the upper arm. You have a double joint at the elbow, Hot Toy style peg at the wrist where you could swivel as well as bend, which I love. Have a ball joint at the waist, double ball joints, you move forward, back, side to side, and just like Goku, we could pop this figure apart and get that added range of extra articulation, which I just absolutely love. The legs as well, forward and back, out to the side, and you could drop the joint down and move even further with it. Once again, awesome. Once again, I also wish there was a thigh cut somehow just to get that extra range. We have a double joint at the knee, and then we have a ball joint at the ankles, so you can move it side to side, forward, back, and around, and then a toe hinge. And overall, I absolutely love this figure. Something I didn't mention with the Goku review, but I actually had bought that figure previously and then returned it because I just wasn't as happy with it as I thought I would be. I ultimately repurchased it and recommended it, but in a way, he just wasn't the right first figure for me to get in this line. He was a little lacking, and I feel the same way with the Monster Arts line, or with pretty much any action figure line. There's certain figures that once you're into the line, you'll accept these kind of slight downgrades or ones that just aren't quite as good because you know the line's good, and you know it's a nice part of the overall line. And Goku, for me, was just a bad place to start. When I restarted, this is actually the new first one I purchased, and that's what made me know I had to go back and get that Goku and get a couple more beyond that, because this guy is freaking awesome. It definitely helps that he was my favorite character as a kid, still is my favorite character watching the anime. I feel like he was an underrated character, and I just liked that he was kind of the villain that became the hero, and I always find that entertaining with a lot of characters and stuff, but they did a great job bringing him to life. I wish the cape was done a little better. I think that gap in the front of it just doesn't look as good as I would have hoped it would. I don't really know how you'd be able to avoid that outside of making it actual soft goods, but the folded arms, all the different hands he comes with. Once again, just like Goku, maybe if he came with a blast effect, a beam effect, it would have been really, really cool. But I also know there are some third-party companies putting those out, so I could get one if I really wanted it. But overall, just really enjoy this figure. I'm gonna give him a high recommendation. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, and especially a Piccolo fan, I think this is one worth getting. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.